Some of my favorite songs that Taylor Swift has ever written are on Speak Now. Here's a hot take. I think Cornelia Street should have been track 5 on Lover. You can tangibly tell the change in Taylor Swift's sound and her music and her songwriting. It's the only album she's ever put out that she doesn't have a single song with sole credit on. She was like up in the middle of the night writing this song. One of my favorite top 3 Taylor Swift songs of all time. Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Nena. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. How's it going? So over the past couple of years, it has been such a fun time to be a Taylor Swift fan, and there's just been so much going on. Even though for most of this year we didn't really have anything from Taylor, we haven't really seen her in a while, she comes in last week and announces that she has a brand new album coming out in literally like 2 months, less than 2 months. And there's just so much exciting news every single year for the past 3 years that Taylor Swift has announced albums and dropped surprise albums and released her re-recorded versions of her albums. There's just so much. It's just an exciting time to be a Taylor Swift fan. And so it got me thinking a lot about what is to come with this new album, and I kind of wanted to go back and look through all of Taylor Swift's self-written songs. Now, we know that songwriting is like one of the most important things to Taylor Swift, and it's the thing that set her apart so early on, is that she was so young and writing almost all of her own songs, which is still pretty rare for an artist to write every single one of their songs and to have a hand in every single one of her songs. And she has one of the highest percentages of self-written songs among all of the pop artists. If you didn't know, Taylor Swift started writing her own songs when she was 12 years old. She had just learned 3 chords on the guitar, and from then on she just like wrote songs like crazy. And I think starting out in country music, there's a huge emphasis on songwriting and storytelling, and she always says that she's learned so much coming up in country music about songwriting. And of course she moved to Nashville when she was 13, which is like one of the songwriting hubs of the country, and I think it's a skill that Taylor is such a master of, and over the years has just become such an important part of her music. And so I was doing some research and trying to see if there was a list of all of the songs that she had sole songwriting credit on, if someone had compiled a list of it, and I found one on Billboard, so I'm gonna link that down below if you guys want to check that article out. But according to their article, Taylor Swift has self-written 54 songs, which is a lot. Out of her entire catalog, that's 30%. The other 70% was songs that she has written with other collaborators, co-writers, and everything like that. But I will say Taylor Swift doesn't really collaborate with more than 1, 2, 3 people per song. There's never a huge long list of people that have written on a song, so she likes to keep her co-writers in a small kind of circle, small group, because I think if you go beyond like 5 people, it becomes less of your song, and it's just like you're less and less a part of the song, and it's less personal, maybe. I don't know. That's just my guess about why Taylor Swift doesn't usually have a ton of co-writers, but she has never put out a song that she hasn't had a hand in writing, which is what I really respect about her as an artist, and I respect all artists that have some kind of hand in writing their own songs, because I think that makes it more personal, it makes it more real. That is always like a huge thing with Taylor. And in recent years, Taylor has kind of exclusively worked with Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff, and she's worked with Jack Antonoff since 1989, and they've just been the dream team. They've come out with some of the best songs she's ever written. But then when she was working in the pandemic on Folklore and Evermore and all the re-records, Aaron Dessner has come in, has also been working very closely with her. Just to give you guys kind of like a comparison or like an idea of like how Taylor Swift compares with other pop artists, the next in line would be Ed Sheeran, who has written 15% of his songs solely by himself, and then I think after that is Adele at 14%. So it is crazy that Taylor Swift has 30% complete solo songwriting on 30% of her catalog. It's kind of crazy, especially because her catalog is so huge. This is gonna be her 10th album. That is like double all of these artists' albums. That's just a crazy number to think about. Interesting to look at all of that and just see how unique Taylor is and how that kind of contributes to her success as an artist and as a songwriter, that she has such a prominent role in the lyrics of her songs. And also all the information from this playlist comes from the Spotify and Apple Music song credits. You can go to each song and click the little like extra option like ... and then you can go down to the song credits and it'll tell you who produced it, who wrote the song, and you could see everyone who's involved in it. So as I was going through all of these songs Taylor Swift had solely written, I created a playlist. So if you guys want to go over to my Spotify, I'll link that down below, as well as the code to my playlist, so you guys can check out all the songs that Taylor Swift has solely written all in one place. But I just wanted to make a video and just talk about these songs that Taylor Swift has written alone, because I think it really says a lot about her as an artist, and especially as you move through the different eras and the different albums, you can see how collaborating with people has greatly affected her as a songwriter and improved, and you can see the growth in her songwriting. But starting out, I just wanted to go album by album and talk about the songs that she wrote alone. And so starting out with the debut album, the first album ever, I think Taylor Swift moved to Nashville at 13 and just got started writing with people, and at 14 she signed a publishing deal. She was making money for her songs and she was writing with a lot of people, getting in the room with a lot of different people, and I think the first song she wrote alone that ended up on the album was The Outside, and she wrote that song I think when she was 12 or 13, 14, very young. And a lot of these songs that she wrote early on, you can tell, are very simple in the production and the chords that she's using and the melodies, but Taylor Swift had this ability to be so vulnerable in her songs and to put forward just like her raw emotions into her songs, which I think is what took her from just being an up-and-coming singer-songwriter, country artist to someone people related to the lyrics. They took them in, and I think that's what makes you an artist. It's that connection you have with your audience, because you could be a good singer, you can be a good performer, but the one thing that's gonna stick with people is your lyrics and your song. And so I think starting out, Taylor Swift wasn't the best singer ever, but I think her songwriting is what set her apart early on, and she was like wise beyond her years. So looking at this song, The Outside, I think my favorite part of it is the chorus, because the melody is really good, and that was like the beginning of her really figuring out how to write a really good hook. The next song she wrote by herself on the first album is Should Have Said No. This song is definitely one of my favorite ones from the debut album, and I actually didn't know that she wrote this alone. Again, I think she was learning how to write a really good chorus, and a chorus that's gonna stick in people's heads. I think she was able to capture very specific emotions in her songs early on, even if it was just like in a simple way. The lyrics that she wrote weren't super complex or like hard to decode, but I think because the emotion was there, that's what allowed people to really connect with her lyrics early on. And the last song that she wrote on the debut album by herself is Our Song, and she wrote this when she was 14, I believe, for a talent show at her high school. This song is absolutely iconic and one of her biggest songs from that first era, and the fact that she wrote it alone and it was able to be like a #1 song is very impressive. And this is like your classic like country music type of songwriting where it tells a full story from beginning to end. Very specific details and visuals. She was mastering the art of storytelling early on, I think. Songs that a lot of people love to sing along to still. Like the songs from the early country days are super nostalgic for a lot of people because everyone somehow just knows the words to Our Song and like some of the other big songs from Fearless. And she was able to do that all on her own without any co-writers. And since I'm going kind of in chronological order here, the next song that she wrote on her own was a Christmas song that was put on her little Christmas EP, and that was Christmas Must Be Something More, which is a cute little holiday song. So now moving on to Fearless. I didn't actually realize how many songs on Fearless Taylor Swift has sole credit on, which it's like half the album pretty much, but I'm just gonna quickly go through some of these. First we have 15, and she wrote this again when she was 15 in high school, and the songs that she writes by herself are very unfiltered. They're not always so calculated in chorus and structure, and I think this was like one of the first songs that we can see her start to think more deeply about emotions, and a lot of people had a lot of personal connection with this song, me included. And then we have Love Story, of course, and she wrote that one night where her parents didn't want her to date this guy, so she ran upstairs. She wrote this song in 30 minutes, which is absolutely insane. And I think this is where she really got into metaphor and kind of like song concepts, because she obviously is writing the story of Romeo and Juliet with a different ending, and that is like showing a huge shift in creativity, I think, in her songwriting, because she hadn't really done something like that before. I'm just gonna list some of these other ones. Hey Steven, You're Not Sorry, Forever and Always, The Best Day, she wrote that for her mom, Change, and then on the platinum version we have Jump Then Fall, The Other Side of the Door, which this song is so underrated because the outro is just immaculate. I absolutely love the outro of that song. And then on the new Fearless Taylor's version, adding at the end here, we had Today Was a Fairy Tale, she wrote that all on her own, and then Mr. Perfectly Fine. Backpedaling a little bit here, I missed a couple songs because they're not on Spotify, and this would be the songs from her Beautiful Eyes EP that came out between the debut album and Fearless, and she had 2 songs on that EP that she wrote alone, and that was I Heart ? And Beautiful Eyes. Those are just little fun country kind of songs that seemed like they didn't make it onto the debut album, but she still wanted to put those out. And then fast forwarding back, we have Speak Now. And Speak Now came about because a lot of people were criticizing her and saying she was not pulling her weight with the songwriting. A lot of people thought she was relying heavily on her co-writers to write her songs, which is weird because literally half the album she wrote by herself, but I think people just didn't know that. They thought that, you know, she just had people writing hit after hit for her. But then when it came to Speak Now, she decided to write the entire album by herself, which is a feat that literally like almost no artists do. And every time I think about that, it's just like so astounding to me because some of my favorite songs that Taylor Swift has ever written are on Speak Now. I won't go through and list them all because it is the whole album, except one of the deluxe songs has a co-writer, and that would be If This Was a Movie. With the exception of that song, the rest of the songs on the album are solely written by her. In Speak Now, you can see a notable shift in her songwriting with emotions, because I feel like there was some sad songs on Fearless, but I feel like Speak Now is kind of like an open nerve that just like keeps pouring out emotion, and a lot, like so many of these songs on this album are 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Dear John is almost 7 minutes. It's just very unfiltered, very raw. Taylor Swift as a songwriter needed co-writers to kind of help her condense her songs and condense her emotions, as seen with All Too Well. It was a 10-minute song that became a 5-minute song. I think if she did have co-writers on this album, they would have made her shorten the songs. Maybe it would have not been what it is. You know? Some of my favorite songs on this album are Back to December, Dear John, Enchanted, a masterpiece, Last Kiss, literally like one of my favorite top 3 Taylor Swift songs of all time. I think she proved her point with this album that she could write really good songs without anybody's help, and that it all came from her. So I think after Speak Now, people no longer kind of questioned her songwriting ability, because obviously she won, I think it was 2 Grammys. She won 2 Grammys for Mean, Best Country Song, which is one of my favorites. Again, I think I've said everything is my favorite, but you know, I feel like I've gone on so many tangents in this video, but I just get so excited about Taylor Swift's songwriting. Before she came out with Speak Now, she had songs on the Hunger Games soundtrack, and she wrote Eyes Open by herself, which was very different from any of her other songs that she had written, because again, it was more of a concept song. She was writing from the point of view as characters in the movie. And I think with these types of songs, Taylor might take some of her own personal feelings and then also kind of put that into a story where she could kind of connect herself with the character that she is writing from the perspective of. But moving into the Red era, again, she wrote a ton of the songs on that album by herself. And I don't think that writing with a co-writer takes away anything from her own songwriting, but it is just interesting to see how her songs that she wrote by herself have evolved, because we go from a song like Our Song and Love Story, and then we get to Red. She's written State of Grace, Red, I Almost Do. I think State of Grace is such a poetic song, and I think that working with collaborators over the years, that always like provides you with some growth and different perspectives. And I think when you do something the same way for so many years, just because that's the way you've always done it, you're just gonna stagnate. But I think Taylor pushed herself to work with other people so that she could grow and and learn new things and get better. So co-writing does not mean at all that it's less valuable than the songs she's written just by herself. It just means that she had another set of eyes, another opinion, someone else kind of pushing her and challenging her outside her box of where she was with just writing like her country songs. Some more songs: Stay, 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 Holy Ground, Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, The Lucky One, Starlight, Begin Again. And then from the new album, Red Taylor's version, she wrote Better Man by herself, which originally was recorded by Little Big Town, and they put that out in 2016. And then, last year she put out her version of Better Man, and then also Nothing New from the new album. And I think after Red, like during Red and then moving into 1989, you can tangibly tell the change in Taylor Swift's sound and her music and her songwriting. She started to work with a lot more collaborators, a lot more different producers that are used to producing pop songs instead of her country producers. This is kind of where Taylor had her second breakthrough, I think. I think of her albums in different sections. First we have Fearless, Speak Now, and Red are all kind of similar feelings to me. They all have a specific kind of way of that she did the songwriting, and then once we get to 1989, Reputation, and Lover, she made that transition to pop and the sound changed. If she never pushed herself outside that box, she would have never been able to create something like 1989 if she had never worked with those new collaborators and co-writers. And this is something that also happened when she created Folklore and Evermore, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later after I get through the rest of this. But as soon as she hit 1989, she pulled back a little bit on her self-written songs and she worked a lot with collaborators. There's only one song on 1989 that she has sole credit for, and that is This Love. And I think that's because that song started out as a poem first, and then she created a song out of it. So that's the only one on 1989. And actually, Reputation is the only album she's ever put out that she doesn't have a single song with sole credit on, which is not bad, but it is interesting. And I think it's because she worked really closely with Jack Antonoff, and I think their ability to work together create these amazing songs was something she just wanted to keep going with. And again, going into the Lover era, she worked a lot with Jack Antonoff again. She kind of dipped her toe back into her self-written songs, and she wrote 3 of the songs on Lover by herself, and that would be Lover, Cornelia Street, and Daylight. And I think I see this theme where when she writes it by herself, it's almost so personal that she wants to be the one to tell the story by herself. And I think that was the case with Lover. She was up in the middle of the night writing this song, and she brought the full song into the studio the next day. With Cornelia Street, here's a hot take. I think Cornelia Street should have been track 5 on Lover, because I feel like it's the most vulnerable, and these are thoughts she was having in her relationship that was the most insecure parts of it, saying, I hope I never lose you, I hope this never ends, I could never walk Cornelia Street again. I think this is a story she had to tell on her own, and I think that's the case with a lot of the songs that she writes by herself. So after Lover, there's another shift where she starts working with Aaron Dessner, and it's very obvious in Folklore and Evermore how the sound had changed, because she's working with a completely different producer that she's never worked with before, and also we're in the pandemic, she's working remotely, which she's never done before. And also I think when you write a song to track, which means the producer sends an already created backing track to you, it's not like she's writing those ones on her guitar, and so it's a little bit different. She did this with some of her pop songs, that Jack Antonoff would send her a track and then she'd write lyrics over the track. This is seen with I Wish She Would, Out of the Woods. I think because Aaron Dessner has such a different sound, it kind of forced her out of the box again. And even learning these songs on my guitar as a musician, I could really hear the difference, and it wasn't your classic 4 chords, it was these different chord progressions, these different time signatures. She's always had a storyteller aspect of all of her songwriting, and she always says that's what she got from when she learned how to write songs in Nashville and country music, but because of the pop production and the sound change, it kind of forces her to go in a little bit of a different direction. And I think working with really, really skilled musicians who can play songs in different timing and different tuning, it really kind of changed the way that she wrote some of those songs. And I I couldn't see her writing those songs unless she had that experience, you know? So again, she had to find her way out of the pop hit, you know, 1989 Love or Reputation kind of box that she was in for a few years. And she moves on to something new. And Taylor Swift always says, I will never change, but I'm never gonna stay the same either. I think that is so true about her songwriting. It's like, you know when it's a Taylor song, regardless of how different it sounds from her country self to her pop self to her Folklore Evermore self. And speaking of Folklore and Evermore, she actually wrote 2 songs alone, and she wrote My Tears Ricochet on Folklore and Nobody No Crime on Evermore. And I think Nobody No Crime was like kind of like her touching back into her country roots a little bit, being a storyteller. And I think My Tears Ricochet is one of those songs that she could have only written by herself because it was so personal and so raw to her. And looking to the future, I do wonder about this new album and how much collaboration is going to be on it. I'm assuming she's still working with Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff, but I wonder if there's songs on this album that she's written alone, because these are the songs that are written in the middle of the night. She talks about 13 sleepless nights scattered throughout her life. I think those songs that she ends up writing in the middle of the night are the ones that she writes by herself usually. And so I'm very curious to know how many of these new songs that she's written by herself, because I feel like the middle of the night is such a vulnerable place. And even if she does have co-writers on it, I think these are all going to be pretty raw and personal experiences that she can only trust with like her inner circle of collaborators. I'm just really excited. I could be completely wrong, but I just don't see this new album being anything we've seen before. I can't see it being like an upbeat, like pop single type of, I don't know, Midnights? Like, it doesn't sound like super joyous to me, but she does talk about dreams and nightmares. So maybe there's like 2 sides to this. Maybe there's like the good in the middle of the night type of dreams, and then there's kind of like the not so good middle of the night, this is me trying kind of vibes. So maybe we have Lover, and then we have This Is Me Trying. Those might be the 2 moods of this new album, but I am just so curious to see the songwriting. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful and poetic. Also, I forgot to mention she wrote Carolina by herself, that movie track that was featured in Where the Crawdads Sing. I think there's 54 songs altogether of songs that Taylor Swift has solely written on her own. But again, I just wanted to make this video and just kind of go through and talk about all these different songs that she's written on her own, because I think it's like one of the most impressive things about her, and it truly makes her music what it is, and it's why I love her so much. I really connect to lyrics. I think her ability to connect and relate with people through her lyrics is what makes her so successful and what makes people love her so much. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments about your favorite songs Taylor Swift has written alone, what you think that means, and your predictions for this new album. We're gonna keep talking about it until it comes out, because I will not shut up about it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Comment down below any other video ideas you have for me, anything else you want me to talk about. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos. I post new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. I put some pumpkin spice in my coffee today. Just, you know, it's like 102 degrees outside in California, but I'm pretending like the fall season is coming. But it's probably not going to be here for a while.